The views and opinions expressed in the DILLIGAF podcast are those of the host alone and are not intended to express those of any other person, business, or entity. The DILLIGAF podcast is for entertainment only. These are my opinions and should not be interpreted as facts or advice. Think for yourself.
Keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh, yeah. I think that we've all had enough.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the DILLIGAF podcast, talking about anything and everything that interests me. If it makes me think, laugh, cry, scream, rage, or say, what the fuck, you'll hear about it. My name's Tom. I'm your host. I want to thank everybody for checking out the show. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, share, comment, all that kind of stuff really does help out with the show. Make sure you're following on social media. You can find the show at DILLIGAF_pod on all social media platforms. And if you ever want to shoot me an email, it's dilligafpod@gmail.com. And you can scan my, you can find all of that on my link tree, or you can scan the QR code up in the corner right there, and it's linktree/DILLIGAF_pod. You'll find links to all of the podcast platforms, YouTube, social media, all that kind of fun stuff. So we got a good one this week. We are talking about law enforcement, and I touched on some of this stuff a little bit in the episode about justice and vengeance that I did a little while back, but I really wanted to get more into the law enforcement aspect of this because yeah, there's a lot of issues there, a lot. And first and foremost, I want to say this, and I want to be very clear about it. All cops are trash. All of them, without exception. There's going to be people that have a problem with that. I really don't care. But I'm sorry, all cops are trash. I don't care if it's your mother, father, sister, brother, husband, wife, aunt, uncle, niece, nephew, cousin, son, daughter, neighbor, best friend, whatever. If they're a cop, they're fucking trash. Simple as that. And obviously that's my opinion. That's the whole point of this show. It's all my opinion. But and what I mean by that is all law enforcement. I mean every law enforcement agency in existence, from the federal level all the way down to the redneck backwood sheriff in podunk nowhere middle America. There is corruption. Everybody knows it, and it's in every law enforcement agency in the country. And obviously, talking about this, I'm only talking about the United States. That's where I live. So, but every single law enforcement agency, from the FBI all the way down, you know, that's just how it is, how it's been for a very long time. There is some measure of corruption in every law enforcement agency. And I mean, and when I say all cops are trash, that's because if they're not involved directly in the corruption, they're aware of it. They know what's going on, and they do nothing, which makes them equally as guilty as people who are directly involved in it. You know, I'm sorry, but it's true. If you're a cop, you're not involved in, you know, whatever might be going on, but you're aware of it and you're just turning a blind eye to it, you're guilty. That's just the way it is. That's just how that works. Okay, you are an accomplice. If you are not directly involved in it, you are an accomplice. So all cops are trash, my opinion. And there's going to be people that say, well, if you feel that way, don't call the cops when you're in trouble or somebody's trying to rob your house. No, I am going to call the cops, because part of holding them accountable is expecting them to do their fucking job. You know, actually do something. So that's part of holding them accountable. Do your fucking job. So yeah, I will still call the cops if somebody's breaking into my house or stealing my car or whatever it might be. You know, and I don't feel a bit bad about that. It's not hypocritical, expecting them to do their job and not be trash. But I mean, just think about all of the crap you see about cops in the news and on social media, we're talking racism, police brutality, civil rights violations, constitutional rights violations, cops getting involved in drugs and extortion and racketeering and blackmail and framing people for crimes that they didn't commit, and perjury, witness tampering, evidence tampering, uh sexual assault, theft, murder. I mean, it's ridiculous that any of this stuff would be associated with any law enforcement agency, but pretty much every law enforcement agency has been accused or convicted of a lot of the stuff I just listed. And obviously not the agencies as a whole, members of those agencies, whatever. But I mean, come on. You know, I don't understand why people become cops. It makes no sense to me. If you become a law enforcement officer, you should be held to a higher standard because you're the one that's supposed to be enforcing the laws. And it's just mind-boggling to me. Because honestly, I think some people become cops because of the corruption, and they know they can, get extra money or whatever it might be behind the scenes by doing some shady shit. I honestly think that is some people's reasoning for becoming police officers or whatever type of law enforcement officer they become. I honest to God believe that. And the thing is, in you can look this up in other countries. The training to become a law enforcement officer is very in depth, very intense, very, it's a long process that to train to become a law enforcement officer because you actually have to learn the law. What a concept. Cops in the United States aren't taught the law. They don't, most cops don't know jack shit about the law, about the actual laws on the books for whatever state or city they might be in. It's insane to me. I mean, that's the number one thing that law enforcement in the United States needs is more training in the laws, training in people's rights. That's the biggest complaint that everybody has about police is violating their rights, violating their constitutional rights, their civil rights. I mean, you see so many of these videos on TikTok of these people who call themselves auditors, and that's their whole purpose is to catch police violating people's rights. And don't get me wrong, I think a lot of these people purposely antagonize the cops. I definitely don't recommend doing that because you're taking your life in your hands if you do. But at the end of the day, these people are 100% right in what they're saying about cops violating people's rights. You have every right to walk down a public street, public sidewalk, taking pictures of whatever. You're out in public. If you're out in public, you have no expectation of privacy. If somebody's filming or taking pictures or whatever the case may be, they have every right to do that. You have no expectation of privacy unless you create that privacy yourself. But just walking down the street, that's not a thing. You don't have an expectation of privacy. So if somebody is walking down the street, taking pictures, taking video, standing on a corner, taking pictures and video, just looking around, filming the cars driving by, filming the clouds, whatever, they have that right. But these cops will go, what are you doing? What's your purpose here? Give me your ID. That's another big thing. Cops think they can just walk up to people and demand identification. Now, there are certain, and this is a state by state thing, because there are states out there that what they call stop and ID states, meaning cops don't have to have a reason. They can randomly walk up to you and ask for your ID. Okay, where I live, Chicago, that's not a thing. They have to have suspicion of a crime. They have to have reasonable suspicion or probable cause to ask you to identify yourself. Okay, they don't follow that, or they'll make up some type of bullshit. The catch-all term that they like to use is disorderly conduct. that, I'm sorry, standing outside my house or out on the corner or whatever, taking pictures or just standing there chilling, smoking a cigarette, whatever. That's not disorderly conduct. That's not a crime. That's not sufficient reason for a cop to walk up and ask for ID. It's not. But then they'll try to turn it around on you if you refuse to give them ID. Oh, well, you're refusing to identify that. I can charge you for that. Not so much, because that's a secondary offense. You hear that a lot in the TikTok videos too. Failure to identify as a secondary offense. And it's true. If say you're driving in your car and a cop pulls you over for running a red light. Okay, well, running the red light is the offense. You refuse to identify yourself when that cop pulls you over. Well, now you got two charges: running a red light and failure to identify. But if you're just like sitting out in front of your house, just enjoying a nice day outside or something like that, and a cop randomly walks up to you and says, "Give me your ID." No, there's no primary offense that you can tack failure to ID onto in that situation. But again, if you're driving your car and a cop pulls you over, you kind of have to produce a driver's license. You have to show them that you are legally allowed to be operating that car, because that pretty much every state has laws and legal requirements for driving a car. And first and foremost, most on those, you have to be licensed by the state to drive a car. So if you're driving and a police officer comes and asks you for your driver's license, you kind of don't have a choice. It's kind of, see, to me, that's a bit of a gray area, because no cop will ever tell you right off the bat what they're pulling you over for. They'll never tell you that. They'll, they will hold that over your head until they get your ID. And if you refuse to ID, they're going to yank you out of the car and put you in handcuffs. And then they'll tell you, well, I pulled you over for rolling through that stop sign. But they won't just tell you that when they first walk up to the window, like, hey, you rolled through that stop sign back there. I need to see your driver's license. And I don't understand why. Because, see, that's another thing I think that some cops need to be trained on, is how to deal with people. Cops have no respect for anybody. And they wonder why people don't have respect for them. People don't respect the police anymore. People fear the police. Okay, and you should not fear the people who are paid to protect you. But and again, that's another area that's kind of up for debate, because there have been court decisions that say police are not under any obligation to prevent crime or protect people. And honestly, that's true. The police's job doesn't start until after a crime's been committed. I said it in the Justice and Vengeance podcast. Police their job is reactionary. Their job is to, after a crime has been committed, investigate, gather evidence, and make arrests. That's the job of the police. They're under no obligation to protect anybody or prevent any crime. And that was a court ruling. I can't remember if it was a Supreme Court or a state court or what it was, but you can look it up. That was an actual court ruling. Police are not under any obligation to protect or prevent crime or anything like that. Mind-blowing shit. But that's why I find it laughable. On the side, every police car, they have some variation of protect and serve. Like on the Chicago police cars here, it says we serve and protect. No, you fucking don't. You don't protect shit. You look at the crime rates in Chicago, y'all are failing at the protecting part. I'll tell you that right now. And again, I'll go back to these TikTok auditors. Like I said, a lot of them, I think, intentionally try to provoke the police and will antagonize them. I really don't recommend that, because as loose as cops are with pulling their guns and opening fire, you're taking your life in your hands if you provoke or antagonize a cop. And it shouldn't be that way. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that that's right. That is horribly wrong, that should be a concern for anybody. Because again, police are not people we should be fearing, but anytime I see a cop when I'm out on the street, my antennas go up, my guard goes up like, shit, are they, hopefully they don't come and talk to me. It's not supposed to be that way. But it seems like, at least in my lifetime, that's how it's always been. Cops they're just not good people. I've never met a good cop. Like I said, between the racial profiling and I'm going to give you an example from my real life of a racist cop, a few racist cops, because this has happened more than once. I once got pulled over for driving too fast through an alley behind the building where I lived. I was looking for parking. I was driving around the block trying to find a parking space, and I cut through the alley, and I saw a set of headlights behind me, and they were getting kind of close. So I sped up a little bit because this was about 1 o'clock in the morning. So I don't know who's behind me. I didn't live in the greatest neighborhood. So and then as I get to the end of the alley, they put on the lights. It was a cop. So of course I pull over. He comes out, oh, you're driving kind of fast through that alley. I'm like, yeah, I saw headlights on my ass. And he could have easily given me a ticket because I was driving, too fast through that alley. He could have given me a ticket for speeding or reckless driving, whatever, and it would have been perfectly legit. His response to me, he takes, of course, ran my driver's license, made sure I didn't have any warrants or anything like that. Comes back, hands me my license, says, oh, just slow down. Don't drive so fast through the alley. We can't be giving good Irish guys tickets. Don't get me wrong. I'm grateful to not get a ticket, but to not get a ticket just because I'm white, Irish, whatever, that's kind of fucked up. I mean, that right there is a very definition of white privilege. Because had my skin tone not been what it was, God only knows how that interaction would have ended. It could have been very, very ugly otherwise. Middle of the night in a shitty neighborhood in Chicago, stuff happens. So, and then another time, out with a bunch of friends at a bar, having a good time, somebody decided to put their hands on one of my friend's girlfriends. And when they saw how big of a group of us there was, he took off out the door. We followed him and went into another bar across the street, which happened to be inside of a hotel. And so we followed him in there, did not get violent. No punches were thrown. All that was exchanged was words. But then, of course, the manager of this hotel bar calls the cops. And I'll say this, in the group that I was with, I was the only white guy. Cops show up, throw all of my friends in handcuffs, and then come and talk to me. Okay, and I mean, thankfully, they were at least willing to listen to me because I explained the situation. And the guy who grabbed my friend's girlfriend is the one who ended up going to jail that night. What if I hadn't been there? These racist ass cops got all of my friends in handcuffs, don't give a damn about anything they're saying. They're just listening to the white people. Again, situation could have ended very, very differently. And that's just two examples from my own experience. This is stuff that happens every day somewhere in this country, and it's wrong. Police have no respect for people. None. All cops care about is their power trip. They roll up, they immediately think they're in charge, even if no crime has been committed. I'm sorry, if no crime has been committed, you got no jurisdiction. Just because I'm walking down the street and somebody doesn't like the way that I'm dressed, or doesn't like the fact that I'm taking some pictures with my phone or something, none of that stuff is a crime. Suspicion does not equal crime. They always like to say, oh, you're a suspicious person, you're acting suspiciously. That's an opinion. Okay, and you're not opinion enforcement, we're law enforcement. There's no law against anything I'm doing. You have no jurisdiction, you have no right to harass me or get in my face or demand anything from me. But again, cops don't understand that. Why? Because they have next to no training. They spend what, a couple of months in a police academy, and they're not taught anything about the law. They're not taught anything about human rights, civil rights, constitutional rights that are guaranteed to every person in this country. They think they can do whatever the hell they want, and it's a damn free for all. And every police department has a code of conduct. I highly recommend you look it up because it's public record. You, as an average citizen, you can look up your town's police code of conduct. Like I have the Chicago Police Code of Conduct saved on my laptop, and I got it up right here. And they're, these are rules that police are expected to follow. And I don't think that a lot of cops are aware that your average citizen has access to this, or they think that your average citizen won't look this up and hold them accountable. Like a lot of cops, when you ask a cop for a name and a badge number, they have to tell you. They have to. Like here in Chicago, it's the Chicago Police Rules of Conduct number 37. Okay, they have to provide their name, rank, and star number, as it's known here in Chicago, upon request, whether they're on duty or off duty. They have to provide that. If they don't, they are in violation of their rules of conduct. Another thing is that is rule number 37. They have to identify. Rule number 38, and I find this one very interesting because it's kind of open to interpretation. Unlawful or unnecessary use or display of a weapon. Everybody knows how cops dress. They've got the body armor with all the crap attached to it, and they have a gun. They're a cop, they have a gun. That's just part of the deal. They have a gun. But have you ever noticed, if you've ever had any interaction with cops, whether it's a traffic stop or out on the street, whatever, the first thing a cop will do is put his hand on top of his weapon. That's just a thing that all cops tend to do. To me, and again, this is an opinion, like I said, this particular rule is open for interpretation, but to me, standing there with your hand on top of your weapon, that is a violation of this rule. And let me explain. The rule says unlawful or unnecessary use or display of a weapon. This is, this list is things that are prohibited for police officers to do. They are not allowed to do these things. Everybody knows you're a cop, you have a gun. Putting your hand on it is drawing attention to it. You might as well have a big flashing red light on your freaking holster that says, here's my gun. So if you're standing there with your hand on your weapon, you're telling people, I have a gun and I'm ready to use it at any second. How is that not a threat? How is that not drawing unnecessary attention? Unnecessarily putting that on display. I mean, it's right there. It's on your hip. We all can see it. You don't need to have your hand on it just to stand here and talk to me. Because, I'm sorry, cops love to use the line, oh, I have to make sure you're not a threat to me. Are cops really that scared? Are they really that scared of everybody walking the street? Because that's any interaction that they have with people. That's their posture. That's the standard cop stance. I'm put my hand on my gun. Are they really that scared? Because if they're that scared, they shouldn't be cops. If you are that fearful of every single person walking the street, don't be a cop. Because you shouldn't be. You just shouldn't be that cowardly. Sorry, that's exactly what that is. You are displaying fear of every single person you interact with. Cops have no social skills, none, except for with other cops. And even then, it's kind of questionable. Have you ever seen cops interacting with each other? It's kind of weird. but they have no idea how to deal with people. They have no idea how to be courteous. All they know how to do is be aggressive and controlling. And I'm sorry, not every situation calls for that. They have no off switch. Not every situation needs to be a confrontation. They have no skills at de-escalating a situation. All any cop I've ever seen does is just escalate it further. They have no idea how to talk to people. They think they are in control of every situation, and God forbid you try to ask them a question or tell them they're wrong about something. Oh, cops are never wrong. Never wrong. You'll never hear a police officer admit that they were wrong. They'll just turn and walk away from you. They'll do what's called that walk of shame, but they'll never admit that they were wrong. They'll never admit that they made a mistake. It'll never happen. And all of this stuff is really kind of pathetic. And it all goes back to, it leads right back to the first thing I said at the beginning of this episode. All cops are trash. They have no respect for anybody. They have no respect for people, for their rights, for anything. You know, and if you do happen to prove a cop wrong, God help you, because you'll probably end up in handcuffs on some bullshit charge. Just because they get embarrassed and you hurt their feelings. And that's another thing you hear a lot in the TikTok videos. You're not the feelings police. You're not feelings enforcement. But that's what they do. They enforce their own feelings. They think they're right, and nobody can tell them otherwise. And if you do, God help you. And you hear a lot about this stuff, you know, defund the police. And idiots think that when people say defund the police, they think it means to do away with the police. Nobody's trying to abolish law enforcement. Law enforcement, unfortunately, is necessary. Okay, but I don't think the police need military grade weapons and equipment. You know, this isn't, it's not a war zone. Cops don't need tanks. And you think I'm exaggerating? I've seen police departments with military vehicles. You know, cops came into the building where I live to arrest one of my neighbors who was selling drugs out of his apartment. They came with the search warrant, the SWAT team. It was frightening. Okay, this was at 6 a.m. one day, and the vehicle that was parked out in front of my building, you would have thought we were in Afghanistan or something, with the armored personnel vehicle that was sitting outside of my building. It's completely unnecessary. You know, so yeah, I kind of do agree with that aspect of, you know, defunding the police. They or take the funding that gives them this kind of shit and put it back into training them. Teach them what they can and can't do. Teach them what the law says about people's rights. Constitutional rights, civil rights. You know, the Fourth Amendment is still a thing. You know, cops will come up to you, and again, I'll use a traffic stop as an example. If a cop stops you for rolling a red light or stop sign or whatever, yes, you have to give them your ID. You've committed a violation. It does not give them probable cause to search your vehicle, but they get on their little power trip, and that if you refuse them access to search your vehicle, they'll make you sit there until they call a canine unit or whatever it is, and then they will false trigger the dogs to give them probable cause to search your vehicle. I've seen it happen, and it's ridiculous. That, I'm sorry, that's an unlawful search. You can ask me all day, hey, I want to search your car. No, get a warrant. Oh, we need to come in and search your house. No, go get a warrant. And cops, that's another thing you'll see a lot on like TikTok. Cops will knock on somebody's door, no warrant, just come and try to question somebody or looking for a specific person. And soon as the person opens their door, the cop's foot goes right in their threshold, so they can't close it. That is illegal. But you can't slam the door on the cop's foot because then you're assaulting a law enforcement officer and you've committed a crime and you've just given them probable cause to tear through your house. And that's what they're hoping you'll do in that situation. They're hoping you will slam the door on them so they can use that as an excuse to violate your rights. So yeah, my answer to that, cop shows up at your door without a warrant, don't answer it. Just let them sit there and knock. They'll eventually get tired and go away. Because you are under no obligation to provide any information to the police without probable cause, reasonable suspicion, whatever you want to call it. You're under no obligation. You know, like I said, police they need more training, and we need a better system in place to vet these motherfuckers. Because at least half of the people out there with a badge and a gun should not be there. At least half, probably way more than half. They have no business being cops because they just don't give a shit about people. And that to me is sad. That should be the number one qualification for being law enforcement officer, is caring about people. You know, thing called empathy. That's something that all cops are sorely lacking. And again, all law enforcement agencies are so damn corrupt, whether it is taking bribes or stealing evidence, planting evidence, take your pick. And there's going to be people that, like I said, are going to say, oh, it's not true, it's conspiracy theories, you're just making shit up. Sorry, look up some cases. It's not uncommon. It's not uncommon at all. And again, there's, like I said at the beginning, there's going to be people that say, oh, if you hate the police so much and don't expect them to come if somebody's breaking in your... No, I 100% expect them to come because that's their job. Their job is not to harass people, damn sure not to shoot people without any kind of cause. I mean, come on, there was a case not that long ago, and I should have written the woman. I should know the woman's name by now. But the woman who supposedly threw a pot of water at a cop, he shot this woman in her own kitchen. You know, now he's up on charges for murder, which he should be. That woman was no threat to him. Okay, and even if she did throw a pot of boiling water, and which she did not, go look at the video, she did not throw no fucking pot of water at him. Yes, it's boiling water. It you know, probably gonna burn your skin if it hits you. That is not sufficient reason to kill someone. You know, why is the first thing so many of these cops want to reach for is their firearm? Y'all have mace. Y'all have tasers. Y'all have batons. A lot of cops nowadays carry knives. You got steps to go through before you just start blasting. Unless the person across from you has a firearm of their own, then yes, pull your gun and go to work. If that person's threatening you with bare hands or a stick or even a knife, bladed weapon, or a pot of water, try some pepper spray, try the taser. There's no need to take that person's life. If they're 10 feet away from you with a pocket knife, they are not a danger to you. Not an imminent danger anyway. Tase them. Pepper spray them. Take your baton, knock the knife out of their hand. Your reach will be longer than theirs. But no, the first thing most cops do is draw their firearm. That is a problem. That is a training issue. Because, again, de-escalate the situation. Okay, you shoot somebody with some pepper spray, that's going to de-escalate real quick because they're going to drop whatever they're holding and grab their face most of the time. You tase somebody, they're going to drop what they're holding, their body's going to go stiff and they're going to hit the ground most of the time. But no, first thing cops do, they draw their firearm and start just shooting. And it's really, again, it's kind of pathetic. The cops are that afraid of an old woman with a pot of water. Yeah, cops need more training. We need better oversight over police, but most of the places that do that oversight are just as corrupt, so I don't know how well that would work. But they need training in the law, they need training in people's rights, they need training in de-escalating situations, they need training on how to interact with people, especially people who might be disabled. Or you know what, let's just use a more blanket term: how to interact with people who might be different from them, whether that's a racial difference, a physical ability difference, a mental ability difference, whatever it might be. They need training on how to deal with people who are different from themselves, because most of them have no clue. They have no sympathy, they have no empathy, they have no feeling at all. And I understand in that line of work, you may need to kind of turn your feelings off because you need to be neutral to some extent, but you also need to be able to differentiate between someone who is a danger to the public or someone who might just be having like a mental breakdown and might just need help. So that's a big difference. And I've yet to ever encounter a cop who understands that. So I guess that's going to do it for my little rant for today. I'm sure people are going to love this one. But yeah, law enforcement needs to do way better, because the state of law enforcement in the United States is pathetic. Most of them don't belong in that job. The level of corruption is obscene and sickening. And the lack of empathy and compassion by anybody in law enforcement is just sad. So, one last time, I'll say it again: all cops are trash. Don't care how many cops you know. Don't care how many cops you're related to. Don't care if you're a cop yourself. All cops are trash. It's as simple as that, and it needs to be fixed. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. So, yeah, that's going to wrap it up for today. Again, I want to thank everybody for watching, listening on YouTube or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast from. Make sure to follow, like, subscribe, share, rate, comment. All that stuff really does help the show out. Make sure you're following on social media. It's at DILLIGAF_pod on all social media platforms. You can find all that on my Linktree, which is Linktree/DILLIGAF_pod, or scan the QR code right there in the corner of the screen. And if you ever want to shoot me an email, it's DILLIGAF. Yeah, I forgot my own email address. DILLIGAFpod@gmail.com. So, yeah, once again, thank you to everybody for checking out the show. And if anyone has any issues with anything that I have said here today, and I'm sure there's somebody, ask yourself one question: do I look like I give a fuck?
'Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution.